My name's Samuel Carter, and I found out my wife was having an affair with her boss the night I heard her laughing through our bedroom wall at 3 in the morning. It wasn't her polished dinner party laugh. It was the real one, the one she used to save just for me. I pressed my ear against the wall and stood frozen while I listened to Lauren giggle like a teenager, whispering into her phone. He doesn't suspect a thing, Paige. Samuel's so buried in his little projects down in the basement, he wouldn't notice if I brought Mark home and spent the entire night with him under the same roof. My stomach dropped. Mark Morrison, her boss, the same man who'd looked straight through me at the company Christmas party like I wasn't even in the room. Her voice dropped lower, like she was sharing a secret. The test came back positive this morning. I'm not telling Samuel yet. I need to work out the timing. Timing, like she was planning a demolition. I slid down the wall and sat on the hardwood floor, hands shaking while she kept talking. Mark says if things get messy, he can handle Samuel. He's got that guy, Cole, ex-cop, runs his security. Samuel's just a contractor. What's he going to do? The answer hit me hard. I'd built this house with my own two hands, wired it, plumbed it, framed it out board by board. While I worked myself into the ground, Lauren picked paint colors and posted photos to Instagram bragging about our renovation. Her friends called it authentic. The only thing authentic about her was the lying. I heard her sigh, bored. I can't stay married to him much longer. It's embarrassing. Rachel asked if Samuel even owns a suit that fits. I looked down at my clothes, paint-stained jeans, a worn work shirt, steel-toed boots that walked more job sites than Lauren had ever walked through malls. Mark's penthouse is unbelievable, she went on. You have to see the view and the place itself. I've spent more time there lately than Samuel could ever imagine. I closed my eyes, fighting the image of my wife sharing those private moments with another man while I was home fixing a leaky pipe. It'll be simple, she said. He trusts me completely. He doesn't know how to hide assets. I've handled our money for years. That part was true. She managed every dollar I earned at Carter Built Construction, paid the bills, ran what she called our portfolio. I never went to college. She did, and I was always proud of her head for numbers. I never suspected the same mind that balanced our checkbook could lie to my face this well. Obviously, I'm keeping the house, she added. It's worth almost $400,000 now with everything Samuel put into it. That covers my stake in Mark's new venture. My house, the one I bought with my first real paycheck, the one I carried her over the threshold of 8 years ago while she laughed and called me her handsome caveman. The bedroom door opened, and I heard her footsteps on the stairs. I bolted to the basement, grabbed a wrench, and pretended to be working on the water heater. "What are you doing down there, Samuel?" she asked from the top of the stairs, wrapped in the silk robe I'd bought her for Christmas. "Making a weird noise," I said, keeping my voice steady while a storm ripped through my chest. "Might need a new heating element. It'll have to wait. I've got an early meeting with Mark tomorrow." She said his name so easily, like she wasn't planning to destroy my life and fund her boyfriend with the sweat I put into this house. "Yeah, I'll finish up." She went back upstairs, and I stood there at the workbench, surrounded by the tools I'd used to build our life together. I thought all of it was permanent. Growing up in foster care taught me nothing lasts forever, but I actually believed Lauren would be different. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake Turner, my buddy from the job site. "Beers tomorrow. Wife's making her famous wings." Jake had been hinting at this for a while. Little comments. "She spends a lot of time at those corporate events. Funny how she never mentions you at the office picnics." I'd written it off as a divorced guy's bitterness. Apparently, he knew more than I did. I texted back, "Tomorrow works. Family stuff tonight." Family. What a joke. Lauren was ready to torch everything we'd built to start a new life with Mark Morrison. I spent the next hour running through scenarios. Confront her? She'd deny it. Hire a private investigator? She controlled all the money. I was cornered, but I wasn't helpless. I knew how to build things from nothing, and I knew how to protect what I'd built. The next morning, Lauren came downstairs in a navy power suit that probably cost more I made in a week. "Morning, honey," she said, kissing my cheek like she hadn't spent the previous night planning my downfall. "Sleep okay?" "Like a baby." "You?" "Fine." "Weird dream. We were on a beach somewhere, drinking champagne." "Sounds nice," she said. "Maybe we should think about a vacation." "Samuel, you know we can't afford that right now." "Sure we can. And I just landed a huge contract, the Whitfield building." That part was true. Whitfield Development had hired Carter-Built Construction for a 6-month job worth $200,000, the biggest contract of my career, with 3 more buildings planned after it. Lauren's expression shifted, and I knew exactly what she was calculating: how much money would be flowing into our accounts and how much of it she could siphon off for her new life. "I need to go," she said, grabbing her bag. "Big day. Mark's announcing some new initiatives." "Tell Mark I said hi." She froze. "Tell your boss hello? Isn't that the normal thing to say?" "Oh, right, I will." She kissed me and drove off in the Lexus, the car I'd helped pay off with weeks of 60-hour shifts. The second she cleared the driveway, I called Jake. "Change of plans. I need to talk tonight." Jake lived out past the edge of town, the kind of guy who could fix anything with duct tape and stubbornness. I told him everything: the phone call, the pregnancy, her plan to take the house and bankroll Mark with my own money. He listened quietly, nodding. "I knew it," he finally said. "That woman's been playing you for years." I feel like an idiot. "You're not an idiot. You trusted her. That's not the same thing." He took a long pull from his beer. "Question is, what are you going to do about it?" "Confronting her is pointless. She'll just lie to my face." "Of course she will. She's lied so long she probably believes her own stories by now." He was quiet a moment. "Your problem, Samuel, is you're too good a guy. And to people like Lauren, being good looks like being weak." "I'm not weak. You and I both know that. They don't. So what are you going to do? Start a fight you can't win?" "Who said I can't win?" I said. "I've got skills they don't have, building things and protecting what's mine." That night, I went down to the basement with a legal pad and started making lists. What did I actually know? Her calendar, her routines, the account details she'd never bothered to hide from me in 8 years of marriage. Where she went, who she talked to, what mattered to her. I knew Mark was expanding his security business, military contracts, corporate consulting. I knew her friends Paige and Rachel loved gossip more than anything in the world, and I knew Lauren's real obsession was her image, the Instagram account with 12,000 followers, packed with photos of her perfect life. By midnight, I had a plan. Not a simple one, and definitely not one Lauren would ever see coming. The next morning, she left for work at her usual time. I waited 20 minutes, then drove downtown to Morrison's building, Morrison Security Solutions, 15th floor of the Meridian Tower. At 11:30, his Tesla pulled into the executive lot. At 1:15, Lauren's Lexus followed. A romantic lunch. Perfect. I went home, and there on the kitchen counter was Lauren's laptop, still open, her email already sitting on the screen. She trusted me too much to ever think about locking anything down. That was my unexpected break. 3 months of messages between her and Mark. Not just business talk, but weekend plans, and worse, photos, more than I ever wanted to see. But the real gold was in her messages with Paige and Rachel, months of her mocking me, laughing about my looks, sharing intimate details of our marriage like punchlines. "Samuel's so pathetic," she'd written 2 days earlier. "Still thinks we're happily married." "When are you telling him about the baby?" Rachel asked. "Once the divorce papers are signed," Lauren answered. "Then he can do the math himself." "Savage," Rachel wrote. "I love it," Paige added. I printed all of it, 17 pages of my wife's cruelty, plotting to take my house and end our marriage like it was a paperwork formality. My hands shook as I read it. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. This was calculated, careful, cold. Maybe it was time to stop confusing patience with weakness. That afternoon, I watched Lauren and Mark leave his building together arm in arm and followed them to his penthouse, a glass high-rise that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. I sat in my truck, wondering what to do with my life while they disappeared into theirs. My phone rang. Lauren. "Hey, honey, working late tonight. Don't wait up.
Big project with Mark. Could be a long night. Good for my career, though. I hung up and laughed so hard it brought tears to my eyes. The lies came out of her mouth so easily, I wondered how long she'd been rehearsing them. I drove home to my house, the one she was planning to steal, and made myself dinner for one. That night, I started planning how to expose the truth behind her perfect little world. Over the following days, Jake and I went after the real target, the financial paper trail. Among the emails and documents already open on Lauren's laptop were records that mattered far more than gossip. She had used our house as collateral to help fund Mark's company expansion, signing loan paperwork without my knowledge, contracts I'd never seen, commitments made in my name, assets put at risk that weren't hers to risk. I also found a calendar entry, lunch with Mark, followed by a doctor's appointment marked confirmed timeline. I called the office, pretending to be worried about my wife's checkup. Mrs. Carter was in yesterday, the receptionist confirmed. Her 12-week scan looked great. Due date set for February. 12 weeks. Lauren had gotten pregnant in November, and our marriage had stopped being physical back in October. There was no math that made that baby mine. I understood then how deep this went. It wasn't an affair anymore. It was a coordinated plan. My wife financing her boyfriend's company with assets from a marriage she intended to end, using a house I'd built with my own hands as the down payment on her new life. I brought everything to my lawyer, certain I had enough to protect the house and end things on my terms. He read through the pages slowly, then set them down. Samuel, these prove the affair. They prove she's been cruel about it, but they don't prove she forged your signature on the collateral paperwork. Without that, a judge could call this joint marital debt, and you'd be on the hook for half of what she signed away. That knocked the wind out of me. I'd spent weeks certain I was holding a winning hand, and now I might lose the house anyway. I went back through the emails, searching for anything that tied her signature to fraud instead of just bad judgment. That's when I found it, buried in a thread between Mark and his own business attorney, dated months before Lauren ever got pregnant. A partnership structure for the new venture. Lauren's name wasn't on it as an equity partner. It never had been. Every dollar tied to our house was booked as a loan, not a stake. A loan with Mark as the sole beneficiary if the company succeeded, and Lauren personally liable if it didn't. I read it twice to be sure I understood. Lauren thought she was building a future with Mark. She thought the house, the risk, the affair, all of it was buying her a seat at his table. Mark had never planned to give her one. He was using her signature and my house the exact same way she was using me, as a resource, not a partner. If his company failed, she wouldn't lose her share of it. She'd simply lose everything, alone. Jake read it over my shoulder and let out a low whistle. She thinks she's building a life with this guy. She has no idea she's disposable to him too. I said, neither does he know I know that. That document changed everything, not just for my own case, but for what came next. If Mark had structured the loan that way from the start, deliberately keeping Lauren off the equity, that was proof the investment was never legitimate. My lawyer read it and actually smiled. This, he said, is what closes the gap. It also gave me an idea. Mark wasn't running this company alone. He had investors, board members with real money on the line, people who'd want to know their partner was quietly funding his lifestyle with fraudulent collateral. I found one name on the paperwork, a senior investor named Robert Hale, and sent him copies of everything, the loan structure, the false equity claim, with a short note explaining who I was and what I'd found. 2 days later, he called me back. I've got a seat at the company gala Thursday night. If what you sent me is real, I think the room needs to see it before I sign another check. The gala was the company's biggest event of the year. Every employee, every partner, everyone in Mark's orbit, all in one room. Hale got me a +1 and access to the AV booth. No disguises, no break-ins required. Just a man with proof walking through the front door. The evening of the party, I helped Lauren get ready. She wore a black dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and the diamond earrings I'd given her years ago. I told her you look beautiful, and I meant it. Thank you, I wish you could come, but spouses only, company policy. Sure, have fun. Say hi to Mark for me. She kissed me and drove off, convinced this would be the night that cemented everything she'd worked for.
She wasn't wrong. It would be unforgettable, just not the way she imagined. Jake and I arrived a little after 8. Hale met us at the door and walked us straight up to the 15th floor, where Morrison Security Solutions was hosting its glittering gala. Through the windows, I could see Lauren laughing with Mark, champagne in hand, celebrating a future that hadn't happened yet. "You sure about this?" Jake asked. "Positive," I said. Hale had already cleared it with the event staff, a short presentation before the closing toast, standard for a major investor. Nobody blinked when Jake connected his laptop to the booth. The lights dimmed and the screen lit up with the financial summary, the loan documents, the collateral agreement using our house, Lauren's signature next to mine. Gasps rippled through the room. Then came the messages, Lauren's texts to Paige and Rachel, mocking me, joking about the baby. "Samuel's so pathetic. What are you telling him? Once I've got the house, then he can do the math himself. Savage. I love it." The room went dead silent, then erupted. Lauren stood frozen in the crowd, pale as a sheet. She looked toward Mark, searching his face for reassurance, like whatever came next, they'd face it together. Mark was already arguing with Hale, demanding the presentation be stopped, but the evidence was already up there for everyone to see. Then came the last slide, not another one of Lauren's messages, Mark's own partnership documents, proof she was never listed as an equity partner, proof her signature had bought her nothing but personal liability, while Mark kept full ownership for himself. "Lauren spent months planning to leave me with nothing," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. Turns out Mark had been planning the exact same thing for her. The room shifted. People who'd been staring at Lauren in shock a moment earlier were suddenly looking at Mark instead. Lauren turned to him, waiting for him to say it wasn't true. He said nothing. That silence told her everything. The screen went dark, then lit up one last time with white text. Lauren Carter, infidelity, fraud. Mark Morrison, fraud, deception. Jake and I slipped out while the room dissolved into shouting. "Holy hell," Jake laughed as we got in the truck. "Did you see her face when she looked at him?" "I saw exactly what I needed to see," I said, starting the engine. My phone buzzed nonstop, calls, texts from Lauren, each more frantic than the last. I turned it off and drove home to wait. She burst through the door around 11:30, still in her party dress, looking like she'd walked through a hurricane. "Samuel, someone attacked me tonight, exposed everything at the gala." "Sounds awful," I said flatly. "What kind of information?" She hesitated. "It doesn't matter. Someone tried to destroy my reputation and they succeeded." "Our lives or yours and Mark's? Because it looks to me like what actually got ruined tonight was the two of you." She went white. "What?" "The collateral paperwork and the partnership agreement he never told you about, the one that never made you a partner at all." "What partnership agreement?" I watched it land on her, second by second. Not just that I knew everything, but that Mark had been keeping something from her, too. "He booked your signature as a loan, Lauren, not equity. If the company had taken off, you'd owned nothing. Now that it's failing, you're the one left holding the debt, alone. You're lying." "I'm not the one who's been lying in this marriage." Her shock turned to fury, then something closer to panic. "It was you. You ruined the party. I didn't create what everyone saw tonight. That started with choices you and Mark made. You had no right." "You're talking to me about rights while you were carrying another man's baby and trying to leave me with nothing for a man who was never planning to give you anything either?" She broke down sobbing. "That house is mine too. We built a life together. You picked paint colors while I laid brick. You don't have a claim on that house. My lawyers already confirmed it, and thanks to Mark's own paperwork, he's confirmed the loan was never legitimate either." She sat down hard, the fight draining out of her. Desperate, she grabbed her phone. "Mark will fix this." She dialed. No answer. Dialed again. Nothing.
Something broke in her face that had nothing to do with me at all. By morning, the story had already jumped from social media to local news, reporting on Mark's company collapsing under the weight of the loan scheme and an affair with an employee's spouse. "My career is over," she murmured. "You're young, you'll find something else. Everyone in the industry will know. Nobody's going to hire me. Maybe you should have thought about that before you tried to take my house. I wasn't stealing it, I was investing it. That's called theft, and it turns out you weren't even investing it in anything real. Samuel, please, we can fix this."
Fix what? The affair, the pregnancy, or the plan to destroy my life for a man who is using you the same way? It's over with Mark. I'll end it. We can figure something out. You want me to raise his child and pretend it's mine? Some people do that. I'm not one of them. I have nowhere to go. You've got Mark's penthouse. He's not answering my calls. You're really gonna throw away 8 years of marriage? You threw it away the day you started your affair. I'm just accepting reality. She had nothing left to say. The next morning, she packed slowly, like she expected me to change my mind. I didn't. "Where will you go?" I asked. "A hotel for now." "And Mark?" "His lawyers called mine. 3 major clients pulled their contracts. His investors are asking questions. And apparently," her voice cracked, "so is his lawyer about the loan structure." "Shame," I said. She loaded her bag into the Lexus. "I never wanted it to end like this." "How did you want it to end?" "I wanted more than this house, this town, this life. And to get it, you handed everything to a man who was never going to give you a seat at his table." "I didn't know that." "Neither did I until I found it. But you didn't ask. You just assumed you'd earned a place in his life the way you never earned one in mine." She rolled down the window as she pulled away. "I'm going to fight the divorce, fight for my share of the house." "Go ahead. My lawyer's ready. You were never the one holding the pen, Lauren." I watched the Lexus disappear around the corner. 8 years of marriage, gone in under an hour. That weekend, I changed the locks, upgraded the security system, and cleared out every trace of her. By Sunday, it looked like she'd never lived there. Monday, back on the Whitfield project, Jake asked how I was holding up. "Better than expected." "And Lauren?" "She's facing the consequences of what she chose. And Mark's facing his part, too. Turns out he was never as loyal to her as she thought." Over the following weeks, Mark's company collapsed in the headlines. Contracts canceled, investors pulling out over the loan structure. Within a month, it filed for bankruptcy, and he disappeared from public view. Lauren called several times. I never answered. My divorce lawyer handled the rest. With Mark's own documents backing the fraud claim, the case wasn't close. She walked away with the Lexus and her belongings, nothing else. I kept the house, free and clear. I heard, through Paige, that Lauren had the baby, a boy, and that Mark never stepped up to help raise him. She moved across town and started over on her own. I didn't feel triumphant hearing it. Mostly I just felt like a chapter had finally closed. She kept reaching out for a while, a text, an apology, a birthday message. I never answered. Eventually the messages stopped, and I let them go. I threw myself into work. Eventually I met Claire, a divorced teacher raising a teenage daughter on her own. She'd been through her own betrayal, and she understood what it meant to carry invisible scars. We took our time, no rush, no empty promises. One afternoon on my back porch, she asked if I ever thought about my ex-wife. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I miss the woman I thought she was, not the one she turned out to be." "Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" "Forgiveness isn't about her anymore. It's about me. I already forgave myself for trusting someone who didn't deserve it. What she does with the rest of her life is up to her." "Have you made peace with it?" "Yeah," I said, glancing at the house, at my life, at the woman sitting beside me. "I think I really have." We got married in the backyard of that same house, small, quiet, just the people who mattered most. At the reception, Jake raised his glass. "You happy, Samuel?" "As happy as I ever thought I'd be." Lauren went looking for a different life and found out the hard way that the man she gave it all up for was never really offering her one. I just made sure I kept what was mine while she figured that out.
To honesty. Looking back now, I understand my story never really belonged to Lauren, even when I thought her betrayal would define the rest of my life. I wrote my own, one choice at a time, refusing to let her mistakes become my shadow. The only thing worth protecting in the end wasn't the win, it was the life I built after her. Clean, honest, finally completely mine.